Our daily opinion on sport, which you're entitled to.
Hi, Shaun Bartlett here, Top Bins, and this morning we're having a great discussion all about sports conditioning and a little bit about his career as well with Rafique Hassim, known to me as Coach Ficky. How are you doing, bro?
I'm good and you, Shaun. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. You just came back recently from the US?
Yes, a few weeks ago. I took some South African boys and an Australian kid to the US on our normal annual tours.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your brief spell in South African soccer, I know obviously you spent quite a bit of time in the US playing USL and other divisions, but I remember there was a team here based in Joburg, FCAK.
Yes, that was towards the end of my career.
Yeah.
I actually retired thereafter.
Okay.
So I played at Wits University,
Yeah.
Morocco Swallows,
Yeah.
and in the US, obviously, for Atlanta Silverbacks. But when I came back to South Africa, FCAK was my last club I played for.
And your experience at Swallows at the time?
Oh, it was good. A lot of fun. I played under Victor Bondarenko.
Okay.
And obviously with Gavin Hunt coming after Bondarenko left.
Yeah. And what's keeping you busy nowadays? Obviously, I mentioned the fact that sports conditioning is sort of your primary, focus. Do you do all age groups, or is it just specifically with professional teams?
Well, obviously, when I was in Australia, when I immigrated to Australia, I worked with Western Sydney Wanderers as a conditioning coach. We worked with the first grade and the under-20 players, so high-level players. And yes, I work with all range of different athletes. But yeah, top players I've worked with and aspiring ones.
Because there's a lot of talk going around, and the two of us always have a bit of banter, with conditioning coaches and head coaches, and who determines who does what and what type of training you do. I'm always of the understanding and philosophy that the conditioning coach, he works with the head coach, not necessarily telling him how to train players and things like that.
I think it's so important to work with the head coach. Football will always be the key component. And I think it's important that you work hand in hand with the head coach.
Yeah. And when it comes to the conditioning side, obviously there's a lot of elements. And the reason I wanted to speak to you is because I believe that as South Africans, we don't focus enough on things like this in order to get our players strong enough to go and compete. Yeah. We always work it the other way around, saying like, okay, let's go find a player to play professionally and then we'll get him fit. Yeah. Is that the right way, or
I think
really?
For me, there's so many important components in all of this. Technical, tactical skill, a vast component, I think, for me personally, is the physical capacity and emotional and mental strength. That is so important, and it cannot be left out. So for me as a conditioning coach, it's all about making sure players are physically fit, that don't get injured.
And when you talk about, for instance, a season going into a season, what would you ideally like as preparation? Is it 4 weeks, 6 weeks?
Look, it takes 6 to 8 weeks just to adapt. Okay. So it's important to have a good base, and thereafter you just got to make sure you have good maintenance. And you got to look at the season as a whole. Some games on Wednesdays, some on Saturdays. You basically have to look at what do you want to win the league? Do you want to win a cup? We all want to win everything. So it's so important to, your periodization plans has to be spot on. You can't overload and you also can't underload,
So everybody throws that word around, and you even hear it sometimes at amateur level, periodization. Give us a little bit more insight about if I'm talking to a parent and I'm saying like periodization is like, what is that?
So you have to put together a plan with speed and agility, power, endurance, strength, flexibility. So it has to compose of everything for the entire season. Yeah. And they get broken down into small little components. So you'll have weekly, monthly, 6 months, 8 weeks as an example, but it can all change, because you don't know who's going to get injured or who's overloading, so it's very important to monitor athletes or footballers constantly.
Okay. And when would you ideally introduce strength training for any sort of footballer?
I think it's
what age?
I think I'll say more resistance training for younger age groups, between maybe 10 and 12. A lot of resistance training, and thereafter you can do a bit of your own body weight and gradually introduce sort of weight training, but in a structured way.
Okay.
So it's so important. You don't want to have kids pick up heavy stuff, because their bodies are still growing. So muscles and tendons grow as well as bones, and sometimes one grows faster than the other. Yep. So you got to be really careful. And I'm sure you can see some kids that are 12 years old look so tall and uncomfortable by running. It's just how their body's growing. So you got to gradually introduce certain strength trainings.
Yeah. And even you just mentioned running, because I remember at Chiefs we had a running coach, which is quite strange, because when you talk about football and you see how footballers run, they all have different ways of running.
Yes.
Does that really impact even injuries, the way you run? Can that be corrected to maybe to have less injuries, or even, more protection, I would say, for yourself?
Yeah, I think so. It's important, your running techniques, but in football it's so different. You'll have sort of a running coach that will do 100 meters or 200 meters as an example, and athletes are running in a straight line. Yeah. Whereas in football, you always have somebody up against you, or you're running towards someone, or someone pushes you off the ball. But the fundamentals are all the same. You just, for me personally, I always specify, and my training programs are always for football. I think because I've played the game. But yes, there's a lot of good that can come from certain running techniques.
So you mentioned obviously being specific to football. Is there also specific training for individuals in the sense of positions?
Absolutely. So defenders will have a different training program. Strikers will have a different training program. Sort of midfielders will have a different program, because everyone's position is different. Yeah. So you can have a blanket approach and do sort of endurance with everybody, but defenders are jumping more.
Yeah,
so, they're going to be hitting the ball more often, as well as strikers. So it all varies.
I also believe with physical conditioning, like you've mentioned, obviously with the mental toughness aspect and psychological, it also helps with that part of the game, because if I'm physically strong, surely my mental toughness will be better as well.
For sure.
How else can you obviously work on the mental toughness side for players?
I think it's so hard when you have elite athletes, and they will do everything in their power to achieve what they need to. And sometimes it's a bit scary. Yeah. So you've got to set certain boundaries. Yeah. And yes, with regards to the mental toughness, I think everyone is not born a winner. Some are born winners. It's just making sure that you achieve your dream. And I think individually, some players are stronger than others. You've played at the highest level too yourself. It's not easy. So you got to be really switched on.
Yeah, I think everybody watch maybe even local football, and you see somebody as on TV, and it's like, I can play there one day. It's not that easy getting to the top level, elite level of football, is it? Because if I can remember, I saw a stat of less than 1% will make it to the top.
Shaun,
what will separate you from the rest?
It's the thousands and thousands of hours that you put your body under immense physical strength, as well as mental strength. It's the ones who want it the most. Yeah. Your gift is not enough. If you look at clubs training 4 days a week and play on weekends, there are people doing double that. And that separates the elite and the ones who really, really want it. No excuses. They just get on with it, and they know a dream is not just a dream without goals, and they work towards those goals.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is also, when you work towards those goals, how often, maybe in a week, for strength and conditioning, how often would you want to do it?
I think that will vary as well, especially with your season. But we did a lot of speed training, and we just did a lot of maintenance. But strength, at least once a week. Also depending on the league, when are you playing. Yep. So probably a Wednesday, as an example, you'll do a bit of strength training. and then gradually decrease that.
Is that now as a team?
As a team, yes.
Would you also have individual programs for specific players? Because as a coach, for me, it's always, if I'm doing testing pre-season, it's not just to have numbers.
Yes.
We need to find, obviously, weaknesses or, strength to work on. And then from there, you sort of incorporate individual programs for these guys to work on.
It definitely will be. Because remember, your guns are so big under your arms there, we can't give you a 5 kg.
Yeah.
So yeah, it will differ. So it can differ, yes.
And I mean, obviously, we spoke about the head coach because I've seen so many things in recent days where, I wouldn't say arguments, but, head coaches saying, bios and sports conditioning and strength and conditioning coaches have too much power. Why would they want to say things like that?
I think, Shaun, for me, I've played the game, so the sweat equity I will understand.
Yeah.
When I look at players that are tired, I'll be able to understand that. And I think you coming back to saying they have too much power, it's got to be hand in hand.
Yeah.
I can't do more than the head coach. And the head coach can't tell me they got to run more, as an example. But it's having a good team that works together. Yeah. I think it's very important. Very important to have a good team.
And your schedule are you involved with the team every day?
I was, yes. Yes. So we train, as an example, 4 or 5 days a week. I'll probably be there every day.
Okay. Stamina and endurance, those are things obviously that will be focused on at the beginning, isn't it? Because, I mean, you mentioning focusing a lot on speed.
Yeah.
You can't introduce speed at the beginning of preseason.
No, you'll do speed and endurance. So I think for me personally, in the beginning, you'll have a good base as in endurance.
Yeah.
Because then you can also have maintenance with speed. But it depends again on your periodization plan.
Yeah.
Where in the beginning, 6 to 8 weeks is all adaptation. And thereafter, you got to sort of maintain it.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest issue, isn't it? The maintenance.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times you do preseason and you train, but I think a lot of coaches and players forget about the maintenance.
Yes.
Throughout the season. That becomes important.
And
To also prevent injuries, I would say.
So if there's no injuries, my job's done, basically. But yes, it's so important. Maintenance.
Yeah.
I'll come back again and say overloading. You don't want to overload because players has to be fresh on weekends.
Yeah.
And that's what you want them to actually peak at the right time.
So it's short, intense sessions you want, high intensity.
Yes. But football specific.
Football specific.
Football specific. For me, I used to warm up with the players.
Yeah.
And we always have a ball at our feet, and if we're doing speed drills, it has to be football specific. So the movement has to be football specific, game specific. We can't just put ladders out there and think we're going to just run.
Yeah.
It's got to be football specific.
Because any training, whether it's strength and conditioning or, football training itself, technical drills, it's got to mimic the game
100%.
that's coming up on the weekend. What do you want your players to actually... Because everything is about memory recall.
Yes.
When I go into the game, it's like, okay, I did this with Coach Vicky.
Yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to do in a match. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Has to. I mean, you're going to hit a ball with nobody jumping next to you.
Yeah.
It's got to be game specific.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to push up against you. So the drills have to mimic the game.
The game. And the nutritional side, obviously, I think it varies. I think from cultures or even countries. In South Africa, it's a major challenge. Our kids obviously, don't always have the proper nutrition. Is there any other way of getting around it or helping kids to
It's so hard, Shaun, because there are the three most important things also is hydration, nutrition, and sleep. So those are so important for recovery. So think about this: if we have a massive session, and after that I eat whatever I want to eat, the body's going to take in what you're giving it.
Sure.
And what people don't understand, fluid, water, is actually transporting nutrients to where it's needed.
Probably the most difficult thing to to get kids to do is to drink water.
That too. And sleep. Kids want to stay up late at night, play games, watch TV. As youngsters, you need at least 9 to 10 hours of sleep.
Okay.
Youth kids, you know. And when you miss that, you can't catch it up.
And the sleep also, like you mentioned, I believe, obviously, and most coaches will tell you that it's probably, more important than training, the rest and the recovery.
Yes.
And you're talking about 9 to 10 hours for which?
For the youth kids, yeah.
So what is that, 12 to 16, 12 to 18?
Yeah, probably 12 to 16. So important. Sleep is vital.
Okay. And as far as nutrition, what should they really eat?
Carbs, protein.
What would the carbs give them?
That will restore your glucose levels.
Okay.
Protein will build muscle. Will help build.
Yeah.
Which I think is so important.
Okay.
Because, you can't be in the gym picking up weights and trying to see growth and then again sleep too. That's how muscles grow after recovery.
And talking about muscles, because everybody's got this thinking and perception, like if you put on muscle, you become slower.
You're always going to add muscle if you pick up weights.
Yeah.
And muscle weighs heavier than fat. Sorry, fat weighs heavier than muscle.
Okay.
So I think it's football specific again. You see a lot of kids in the gym trying to look the part, but are you football specific the part?
Yeah.
Are you strong enough football specific? You can't be a center midfielder, as an example, weighing over 100 kgs or 80 kgs.
Got to be agile, isn't it?
Yes.
You've got to be able to move.
I think footballers in general, the game moves so fast. You know. So I think people kind of lose it when they think the look. You don't need to look the part.
Yeah.
You got to be strong.
Yeah. And I look at somebody like Usain Bolt when he was at his peak. He wasn't a skinny guy, was he?
No.
But the man ran sub 10, 100 meters. So, like you say, it's got to be specific to your needs and the sport that you're participating in. And even though I look at Adama Traore.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's a beast, isn't he?
Absolutely.
But he's fast.
So much fast twitch fibers in that muscles, man, I tell you.
But
we are born that way, Shaun.
Yeah.
Everyone has a gift. Some are born with more fast twitch fibers than others, whereas others have slow twitch fibers.
Yeah.
So slow twitch fibers meaning they will be more endurance-based muscle.
But also more prone to muscle injuries, isn't it?
That depends too. If you strengthen the body, you probably won't pick up much injuries. So you got to do the hard yards, that's to prevent injury.
Yeah. Obviously nowadays, I think there's even a bigger emphasis on mental strength, mental health.
Yeah.
Can somebody work on that, or
absolutely?
How would you do that?
I have a saying: you generally become what you think of yourself.
Okay.
So, yes, you have mental health coaches that will help you carry you over the line, and build that mental resilience. So when I speak to kids and should I say footballers, and I say, guys, what do you want to become? And everyone wants to become a pro. But what are you doing to become a pro?
Yeah.
You're not a pro by signing on a sheet of paper, I've signed my first pro contract. So you got to think of it mentally, your journey. It's not going to happen overnight. So yes, there's a lot of good sports coaches or mental coaches that will help athletes. I think it's so important in today's game. It's a need. It's a big need in our game today.
I worked a couple of years ago with a neuroscientist. It's a lady that helps, because helps players to focus, helps players to recall memory, short term, long term. But also, more importantly, is to have that calmness and composure.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times, imagine playing in the Soweto derby with 90,000 people. We make one mistake, and they're on your case.
Absolutely.
How do you actually overcome small things like that? Do you have to, with your strength and conditioning, also emphasize the fact, because you've got to push them to the limit that they can't believe they can get to?
Yeah. I think for me is you always have to believe in yourself. And you should never let yourself down. So when you're working with these athletes and, you got to always push them to boundaries, unknown boundaries, Sometimes we don't know what's happening at home, and the player gets there and he's not pushing the way he pushes, Most times I'll pull them aside and say, are you okay? I believe in you, I want you to work harder, or I saw you slack a bit in these certain drills, and build a relationship so that you always have a door that's open, where players can count on you.
I think that personal relationship is always important. If you treat the person right, you will get results as a sportsman or as a player.
Yes.
So you have to look after that person first.
All the time. I remember there was a player at the club. He was a centre midfielder, and the coach wanted to play him right back. And he came to me and he said, "I'm not a right back." So I said, "Do you want to play?" He said, "Yes, I want to play." I said, "Then play. Take that. Show why you're supposed to play." And he did very well. And before you know it, he was in the team and he got his position back again. So sometimes there are small little tests.
Yeah, I always find that interesting when a player comes to me and says, "Coach, I'm a central defender." And I'm like, "So you can't play right back?" He says, "No, I'm a central defender." So then it goes to, when your team is doing well and you're winning games, how are you going to get into the team if you're going to keep telling me you're a central defender? Because surely I can play you in the central midfield. It won't make any difference. It's just one position in front. So players also need to understand sometimes that when it comes to positions, you shouldn't really tell a coach, "I can only play this position."
You've got to adapt. You have to adapt.
Because that's what the game requires nowadays, isn't it? If you look worldwide with the speed of the game and how things are being done, everybody needs to be in top shape. Not just before it used to be like, the wingers and the fullbacks, those are the guys that ran the most in the game. Now everybody's doing the same amount of almost distances. The strikers always have to move as well.
Absolutely.
And that conditioning, it takes a bit of time. Like you've mentioned, hours and hours of getting
thousands of hours.
Oh, thousands.
Think about it in your youth. It was thousands of hours, Shaun. Till you reach the top. And thousands.
That's probably the most difficult thing to convince youngsters these days, to put that work in.
With social media, you pop the TV on and it's easy to judge and say, he should have done that or he could have done that. But some of them have never been exposed to type of trainings that elite athletes go through. So it's hard, but I always say, keep your dream alive, hold tight onto it, but you have to work.
So if you want to get to the elite level, at what age should you start focusing on all components? Like we're speaking now, obviously, sports conditioning, nutrition, all the things, mental health, and the technical and tactical, that's from the coaching perspective, doing on training.
Yes.
But if you want to make it to the highest level?
I think firstly, as a kid, you got to just play games, enjoy it. Don't put yourself under pressure. Just enjoy the moments, play as much games as possible. And this goes out to parents too. I have a 9-year-old that's top class, but we don't know what is he going to become at 15. And now we looked at the 9-year-old that was not at the level as the other 9-year-old. When he gets to 15, he might not have been ready yet, but now he's picked up a bit of muscle mass. He's a bit stronger. He's gone taller. He's got more confidence, He's mentally better, as an example. So I think kids should enjoy the moments, and not put themselves under pressure, and gradually enjoy it, and go through it. And when I think between competition phase 15, 16, you gotta know where you're heading,
And the parents aspect, do you try and influence them as well, besides your athletes? Because that's, for me, I always say the parents' voice is the last voice they hear before they go sleep. So there need to be some sort of relationship with them, for them to understand also what you're doing on the field. It's not just you and the kid.
It's important to have a relationship with the parents. And I think again in youth sport too. I think parents think a 10-year-old is a 20-year-old. And he's just a kid. And when you lose games, the kid can't speak 2 words in the car because he's disappointed, and the parents is saying, you should have done that or you could have done that. ask him how he feels. You know, if he loses the game, it's okay. You know, you gotta be a support structure.
And obviously peak performance. We've seen it so many times, and I think a proven example has got to be a Ronaldo.
Yeah.
You know, to play at the highest level for so long, and to peak for so long, it does obviously. I can't recall him having a lot of injuries during his career.
He's doing the right thing, sure. He's eating right. He's sleeping. He's training hard. You know, he's a true professional. And just like everyone else out there, you know, there's so many top players that are out there that are doing the right thing.
I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? A lot of the times, for your profession, your lifestyle needs to suit that.
Yes.
And we tend to take it the other way, especially in South Africa when I see our players getting to the highest level. You know, suddenly the lifestyle changes because to suit their profession, and it shouldn't really.
You look at after a game, when obviously you're out of camp, are the players going home to rest? Are they eating enough nutritious meals? You know, are they taking enough fluids in, or are they in a nightclub?
Okay, so you spoke about taking kids to America.
Yes.
What?
So every year I take a group of boys and we visit different universities in the US.
Okay.
And if they're good enough, they get offered a scholarship. I've been doing this for a number of years now.
Okay.
You know, so it's good to see some athletes that have graduated, some are married, some have gotten their degrees. You know, it's your gift for an education.
Giving them opportunities, if you can't make it, maybe at the professional club.
There's a platform.
Yeah. Okay. And you're based where currently?
In Australia.
Are you in Australia?
Yeah. I'm actually leaving on Saturday.
Yeah. Are you leaving us again?
Yeah. But I'll be back. September, I'll be back.
Okay. You only come for the weather and the food.
The food is good, man. The food is good.
No. Well, I'm very, pleased to have had this conversation. I think sometimes I want this to go out there for parents and for kids that want to make it to elite level. I think it's important to understand what it takes to get to the elite level of football. A lot of the times, and even club owners, they just think it's training, playing, and you get the results. They don't think of the nutrition. They don't think of the strength and conditioning, injury prevention, mental toughness, psychological aspects. There are so many things, but more importantly, what you also touched on that a lot of our players don't really focus on is the rest and the recovery. We all want to do things in order to play, but after the playing, what do I do to my body? I always compared, for instance, and if you go to the ATM and want to draw 100 Rand, but there's nothing in there, you're not going to get the 100 Rand. So what you put into your body will obviously give you the output you require for your matches.
Absolutely.
And it's good to hear from obviously an expert the things that's necessary in order to get to the highest level, but to maintain that, it's probably one of the hardest things to do.
Absolutely.
Well, I thank you. I think it was a great chat. Very interesting because I also learned a few things here today as a coach, but I possibly will take into my profession as well. But I really appreciate the time, and hopefully we see you at a professional club soon as well.
Thank you, Shaun. Yes, I
I'm sure that's the aspirations is to get back into the elite level.
Yes, obviously I moved from the east to the west in Australia, and that changed a bit. Obviously I had to leave my club, but hopefully I'll be back in South Africa.
So that also So how's the wife dealing with this? There's a lot of traveling, isn't it?
Yes. But we settled a bit now in Western Australia.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get some questions also, maybe directed towards you, because I'm sure there's a lot of kids that want to make it to the highest level, kids that's got big aspirations, even though it's a very small percentage that gets to the highest level. Like you've said, got to believe in yourself, got to have a dream, but you've got to work on that dream.
Absolutely.
And I thank you.
Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you.